Welcome to LifeSiteNews. I'm Steve Jalsevac, one of the two co-founders of LifeSiteNews, and I have the great privilege today to interview Father Joseph Devereaux. He's a priest of the Diocese of Peterborough in Ontario, Canada, and well, he's been in a number of dioceses and has a history that is very fascinating and a lot of insights for us that I think you will benefit from. Father Devereaux is a spiritually sound priest, but he also knows a lot of what is going on in the world. And he helps a lot of people to try and understand how they can respond to the situations that we're in these days. So, Father Devereaux, welcome to LifeSiteNews.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right. So, you are, in my view, you're a straight shooter and you're not afraid to tell the truth, but you do it with charity. And I wish there were more priests that did that. We could really use that in the world today. You've been a chaplain at some of our LifeSiteNews events, and our staff have been very pleased with that, and it's been very helpful. Our 25th anniversary gala, you were there, and for our staff meeting that went on for 3 days, and our board meetings, and you were very much appreciated by all those people. Your role in it, you were the Vice Chancellor of the Diocese, is that correct?
No, I was Chancellor.
A Chancellor,
yeah, of the Diocese of Peterborough. So I came to Peterborough 20 years ago. Bishop DeAngelis was the bishop at that time, and he was looking for somebody to work in the marriage tribunal.
Yes.
And so a priest had presented that to me, and I came, and providentially, Bishop DeAngelis, as he said, I knocked on the door and he opened the door. And I never ever thought I'd be here, because I had worked as an engineer in the diocese before I went to the seminary. So I never thought I'd be back to this part of Ontario, but that's how it worked out. So
that's wonderful. So
then I worked in the marriage tribunal, became chancellor. I was judicial vicar first, became chancellor. I always had a parish, because the bishop, he thought that even if you worked in the chancery office, you should have a parish, because it kept you connected with the people.
Well, Bishop DeAngelis was a wise bishop.
Yeah. He was a very pastoral and fatherly figure.
Well, I had many opportunities to meet with him and talk to him, and he was always very supportive. It was kind of rare, actually, to get that from a bishop, but I think he had a wonderful sense of humor. He was very jovial.
Yeah, so, he was a people person, but he was a man of the church. He knew that he was serving the church.
Yeah, and you tried to emulate that yourself.
Well, he was a good mentor. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your past history? You did some of that at the 25th anniversary gala that was done in your honor. And it was very interesting to listen to all the different paths that you took during your priesthood.
Yeah. Well, mine perhaps is a circuitous route, and which isn't unusual for many priests, I suppose. I think you appreciate your priesthood more when there was difficulty getting ordained. For my canon law dissertation, I chose the canon which was the discretionary power of the bishop to ordain, because I was having a hard time getting ordained. So I started out, when I was working as an engineer, I was interested, and I had a twin brother who at the same time, he was investigating, so we went to different places. He went to the Redemptorists. I went to the Augustinians. Now, I had visited some other places. I visited the Legionaries. I visited the Oblates of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Boston. But I ended up going to the Augustinian. They resonated with me because they were active contemplative. They were friars. They had a dairy farm. I came from a dairy farm. They had parishes. And so I joined them, but it was a confusing time right then. This is the late 80s or into the early 90s. So there was things that had happened in those years prior to that, instability in religious communities because of liberalization, sexual problems. So I ended up not staying with the Augustinians, even though I went to novitiate. I didn't stay there. And then where to? Then I still felt called to the priesthood, so I studied on my own for a while, approached my home diocese, different things, and I ended up going to the Fraternity of St. Peter. It was kind of, well, almost, it was like I love the Fraternity of St. Peter, and I'm grateful because I would not have been ordained, I think, without them.
Explain what the Fraternity of St. Peter is. Many people don't know
Well,
that.
The Fraternity of St. Peter is a a religious community who they were founded to say the old Mass. Archbishop Lefebvre, and all that happened there that people know about. There was a number of priests and deacons who wanted to remain in union with Rome, and so instead of the Society of St. Pius X, at that time it was Cardinal Ratzinger that they were negotiating with, the church gave them permission to start a Society of Apostolic Life and to be attached to the traditional liturgy, 1962 books, and so they accepted. And I think it was he who suggested the name, the Fraternity of St. Peter. So their liturgical life revolves around the 1962 liturgical books. And they've done well. They've grown, and so I was there. But there was there's always family problems. St. Augustine said, in essentials, unity, and non-essentials,
charity,
flexibility, charity, but in all things, charity.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I remember we had a general chapter for the Fraternity of St. Peter in Rocca di Papa in 2000 in Rome. And so I remember making that statement when it was my time to speak. So, yeah, St. Augustine was smart, and I quoted him because I'd been in the Augustinians. He had a lot of wise things to say. I got ordained for the Fraternity of St. Peter. Eventually I came back to Canada, to my home diocese in London.
London, Ontario.
London, Ontario, yeah. And then Bishop DeAngelis was, even though my family had been, almost 200 years in the diocese because we homesteaded in the 1840.
So you're a real Canadian, going back quite ways.
But sometimes you can't go home, It's the old saying that, and not that I'm a prophet, but a prophet's not accepted in his own town. So I ended up in Peterborough, which was a blessing. The people were great here. I'd have to say the people in Peterborough, they were waiting for, a lot of them were faithful. They had seen their own problems in the church. They were waiting for better days. And so I just became connected with a lot of wonderful people in the parishes that I've been at. And most of them were small parishes. So, that's my circuitous route, and now I've been 20 years in the diocese. So when I answer your question, Steve, I don't give you all the details about why I've left particular places, but I'd have to say in many respects it was lack of charity, right? Yeah, I remember speaking when I left London. I said to the bishop, I said, and my name's Joseph, so I said, there came a Pharaoh who knew him not, right? And so a lot of times we don't, my mother, God bless her, my mother was a holy lady, and she saw my pursuit and going to different places, and so it kind of frustrated her, and she said that they're letting the young men in the front door and kicking them out the back, right? So there's, charity is, St. Paul says charity is the predominant virtue.
Yeah, I think we've lost some really good priests due to that lack of charity over the years. But thank goodness you made it through. That's wonderful. Your past career as an engineer, has it helped you in your ministry as a priest? Not the scientific aspect, but you were in the world, and
yeah, I think it did. Because I have memories of being I was a metallurgical engineer, so I was a manufacturing engineer in a steel foundry, and it wasn't the most Christian place. There was a lot of roughness, right? You're pouring steel, and it's dirty, and the guys are rough and gruff, but they were many of them were good. People always have depth. I remember I'd go and look at my projects, and they'd be using our Lord's name in vain, and I would always say, they'd say our Lord's name, I'd say, pray for us. And it made them uncomfortable. But I got my point across. And when I left, many of them, I'd become friends with them. Even though I was management, most of them were working in the plant. Has it helped me? Yeah, because a lot of them were good men. They weren't Catholic, per se, but they recognized, because I was Catholic. I prayed before I ate meals, and I remember somebody mentioning that. They say, you pray before you eat, don't you? I wasn't brave enough then, I guess, to bless myself. But I said, yeah, I pray before I eat. This was a Christian man. And so they recognized, so there were things that we resonated with. And interestingly, one man in particular, remember there was a moral question, and he said, what does the Catholic Church say? I said, oh, I don't know. He said, yes, you do. What does the Catholic Church say? See, they even looked up to the Catholic Church. What does the Church teach?
That's right. Many non-Catholics do and have done that for centuries. Just only in recent decades has that changed. But it's interesting what you said. You became friends with them. And I think that's one of the keys to evangelization, which many of us forget. To just, first of all, be a friend for Christ through being a friend with them.
And we've maintained our friendships. They came to my ordination, some of these men that I was friends with, or who were customers that I bought. I was their client. I bought patterns and stuff off of them. They came to my ordination, even though they weren't Catholic.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So they celebrated because we had a connection with each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You didn't have to preach to them. You had to. Your personal witness was your preaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Now, on pro-life and traditional Catholic moral teachings and so on, you're very strong on that. What has made you that way? What has motivated you especially? You're outspoken, but with charity. And but I've noticed you've been very strong on those issues, whereas not all priests are.
Well, you know, if you're praying and if you're a priest, and if you know what's going on in the world, those are issues,
Yes.
and people have to know those issues.
Yeah.
I read an article in the paper recently, and it highlighted how in the church now, the younger priests in some parishes, they're speaking about sin. They're speaking about going to confession, about abortion and having children. These are Catholic things, right?
Yeah.
Not to talk about those things. And plus, I grew up in a family that I'm one of 8. I grew up on a farm. The faith was always it was lived, right? We went through those periods too. As a child, we prayed the rosary, and then there was a period when the rosary wasn't prayed anymore, and then it was regained again. So, you know, the busyness of life. But my parents were the example. My parents were faithful, they were humble, and they were holy. I said at my mother's funeral, I said, our parents, to my siblings and all those other people, a small community, they know that everybody knows everybody. I said, that generation was better than us. They were faithful, they were holy, they were humble.
Yes.
And I said, and so it was serious what I was saying. I said, but of all of them, I'm the most like them. And so they laughed. But the point was well taken, right? When I grew up, everybody went to church if you were Catholic. I'm 60.
Yeah.
But when I grew up, everybody went to church. Yeah. And
I remember that as well, yes.
Yeah. And then, but I remember going off to university at 18 and coming back home, and that Thanksgiving after Mass, where everybody knelt down Thanksgiving after receiving our Lord. After those years, a few years in university, I came home and I noticed the difference. That was starting to be diminished. People, Father gave you the blessing and you were gone. So there was, even back then, there was a diminishment.
Well, I even noticed it. I'm 76, and after I went to university, it was very dramatic after I came back. Well, I lost my faith in university.
Which, unlike, and I know people will have their conversion stories or reversion stories, I never lost my faith. I can honestly say that. At university, there was a church right across from the university, always went to Mass. My twin brother always went to Mass. Maybe we were naive.
Well, I went to Mass at the beginning, but the clergy who were in charge of that university were very liberal. And I think that kind of gave me somehow in my mind permission to do other things in life, which I shouldn't have been doing.
And perhaps too, following up on that, I've been blessed. All the priests that in my parish growing up, and even at university, they were solid, faithful, they preached the truth. They were just good men. So I had that history of good priests, which you know, the statistics say who's the greatest influence for vocations? Well, priests and parents.
And well, parents, I suggest even more so, although priests are extremely important.
So I had both.
Yes, you did. I had very good parents, but they were so preoccupied with many other things, I didn't get the kind of formation necessarily to avoid what happened in university. But still, I'm very grateful for my parents.
There was one priest who would have been perhaps the greatest mentor as a young man, Father Caruana.
Oh, yeah.
He, as a young man, I remember going back home. He had baptized us when my brother and I were premature, when we were babies, and then he was gone, and he was Maltese, but he was in the diocese. And then he came back many years later. I was already studying for the priesthood. But I remember he always used to speak, always in every homily he'd say, intellectual pride. I never knew what he was talking about until later. This was something that he always keyed in on, the intellectual pride, right?
Yes, that's the appeal, you know, and then it eventually comes to I am God, which is where we're at now.
It's the simplicity. My parents were simple.
Yeah.
They weren't theologians.
No, they didn't have to be.
No, but in many respects, they were theologians.
Yes.
They were faithful Catholics. I always tell people, what's the 3 things you have to do to be saved as Catholics? Go to Mass, go to confession, pray the Rosary.
Yeah.
That was because they were busy.
Yeah.
They had a lot of work to do, and that's what they were faithful to.
Well, even many non-Catholic Christians lived a much better life back then. I mean, many of their churches have all shut down as well. You know, it's just the entire Christian civilization has plummeted, and we have the great decline of religious belief and practice in general.
And understanding that people don't even know about religion.
Yeah.
When I go to the United States, filling up my car at the gas station or something, and people say, "Hey, Father, how are you doing?"
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in Canada.
No.
I knew a priest who was a priest in Canada, but from elsewhere.
Yeah.
He said Canada was the hardest place that he had served as a priest because it was so secular.
Wow. How long ago was that?
It was only about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would see that.
Yeah.
And yet Canada used to be predominantly Catholic, you know, compared to the United States. You know, interesting how.
At funerals, I thought about this recently because I had a burial. I used to say, and I still do, I say, let's pray the Our Father, because we're a mixed group. Some are Christians, some are Catholics. We all share this same prayer, the Our Father. And I said, and it's the most manly thing you can do, so I want you men to pray too. And I would see they wouldn't be praying, and the young people wouldn't be praying. And I thought, originally I thought, oh, they're obstinate. And then I realized they don't know it. They don't know it to pray the prayer. So these things that are lost, the basics.
Funerals, how have they changed?
Well, the total unfamiliarity that people don't know, there's no ritual, there's no spiritual life.
Yeah.
It's foreign to them.
I mean, a lot of people don't have funerals anymore.
No. Yeah.
And
so the ones that I do have, you can certainly see that the people have no formal practice of any faith.
Yeah.
And you see it with the roadside tragedies.
Yeah.
You see they hold on to the symbols of the faith. So there'll be a cross, there'll be something, but they don't know where to go.
yeah, that's sad. And cremation is, I think, the norm now. What do you find?
Oh yeah, cremation would be, I would think, it'd be more than, it's the majority.
Yeah. What's the benefit of not doing cremation? What's the advantages of that in a spiritual sense?
Grieving.
Breathing.
You see the body, you grieve, you cry. When the cremains come, there's really none of that. It's been sanitized. It's sterile.
Yeah, sterile.
Plus, it's time-wise, there's usually been a big lag because they wait for a convenient time when they get everybody together for a funeral and a burial.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is, and the African priests will tell you, they don't cremate in Africa. Pagans cremate. Christians don't cremate.
Yes.
Well, here people think it's cheaper too. But even the funeral directors tell me that people are skipping the funeral home now altogether.
Yeah.
They go straight to the crematorium and then they get the ashes, and at some point they have some celebration.
Yeah. It's sad, actually. Yeah.
So it's a disconnect with living and dying, being born and living and dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are going on an extended leave of absence soon, and well earned after 25 years. But you're taking a very special course right now. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the extended leave is a sabbatical. So
Sorry, that's what I meant. A
So I
sabbatical.
do get some
that's
time,
not a
so,
leave of
which I'm
absence.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But prior to that, and this is just pastorally, and having been chancellor, people have spiritual problems of a preternatural nature, demonic nature. And so as a priest, people show up and they've got problems, or they want things to be blessed, and maybe they have all these things. I've never met them before. They're not coming to my parish, but they've got St. Benedict medals or St. Michael prayers, and I say to them, this is a very interesting collection of religious articles. It's all for fighting evil. Well, what's your problem? And so then they tell me, and a lot of times it's there are things that are bothering them. Maybe it's manifestations of evil spirits, or and then just as chancellor, well, for sure, people would call and say, we've got a problem, there's something in our house. It's palpable, right? And a lot of times we've tried to explain it every way, but there's no explaining it. There's something here, and strange things are happening. Can you come and bless the house? And then there's those odd people that come and they think they're possessed. And some of them, they are. Or they're seeing things, and they've opened and a lot of times then they tell you, you ask them, well, when did this start, and have you been in the occult? And I'm surprised a lot of times people have been. Like,
what's the most common items that get them into the occult?
Well, they've gone to psychics.
Yeah.
They've had the Ouija board. I know even now, so many and there's groups for Dungeons and Dragons. I know a young man very well. He lives for this, right? He can't miss his Friday meeting. He's got this Dungeon and Dragon thing. So it's all this.
Palm reading, you guys?
Yeah, some of them they went to fortune tellers.
Yeah.
And then a big thing is a lot of times too, generational. There's some wound from the past, maybe abuse, and now. For me, a lot of that's coming up now is MAID. One lady, medical assistance in death. Yeah. One lady came to see me, and out of the blue, right? She happens to be in the area, not coming to church, but a Catholic, and says, strange things are happening in her house. And so after a few meetings, then you find out, well, her husband was sick, and she consented and condoned him having the medical assistance in death. Mm-hmm. Just this yesterday, as a matter of fact, at the church I'm at, it's a very beautiful church and a stone wall. I have a man that's fixing the stone wall. And I'm out in my cassock talking, and a truck pulls up, a man in his 70s gets out, and he comes over, and he's Presbyterian. And he said, I was wondering if you'd be out doing gardening. And so obviously he's seen me in these past 8 years, but he's never dropped in. And so he wanted to know a friend of his, and he was with her when she died, of medical assistance in death. He says, he's a Presbyterian, and he says, what does the church say about that? And I said, we don't agree with it, don't allow it. And then I'm not going to preach to him. Yeah. She's gone, and he's crying. He's 70. He's a laborer. Yeah. I said, you pray for her. You pray for her now. She's in God's hands. We just pray for her. That's all you can do. So this is it now. People are being led astray. They're being deceived.
Well, on a very large scale right now. I mean, you've been motivated to do this. First of all, most priests do not get the kind of training that is needed to deal with that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. And then you asked the question, what I'm tagging. Yeah. I thought, well, I need more information. I need to help these people. Yeah. And so, for sure, we know, as priests, we know in our own personal lives, we know about the battle between good and evil, and Satan and his minions, and that Christ is fundamentally an exorcist, that he came to cast out Satan. But in the seminary, we're not, you might have a course on angelology, or not, but you're not given practical tools. You're not giving the prayers to pray, the manuals to pray.
Well, we must be at a time where there are many people coming to priests now that are experiencing these difficulties because of the nature of the culture that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
And
there's an increase, an uptake in all this, well, especially since now you're free to do everything, even be a satanic worshiper.
That's right.
And be public about it.
Yeah. It almost seems that most priests now have an obligation to learn about this, because otherwise they will be turning away people and not being able to help them in any way.
And that happens. There's a woman who came to see me, and she thinks she's possessed, and she very well may be. But she's not from my area, so she called me on the phone. She was having a difficult day. I said, "Where are you?" Well, she was at her local church. And I said, "Where are you?" She's in the church. I said, "Oh, that's good. That means Father's there if the church is open." I said, "Go to Father." And I said, "Go, he'll hear your confession." And then there's a message on my machine later, and Father says, "I know why he's calling." And it disturbed him. And this woman, he said, "This is weird." And he said, "This disturbed me." I said, "Good. Did you hear her confession?" I'm not going to say whether he did or not, but he didn't do her very much good because he was afraid of it himself.
Yeah.
This is life.
Yeah.
This is God and good and evil, and this is our human condition. And so priests don't have the practical skills that they need. So I researched, and I thought, well, I need some more skill and tools. So I got the bishop's permission to go to the Pope Leo XIII Institute in Chicago to do it's a 4-module course, which is on deliverance ministry and demonology.
From what we are doing in LifeSite and all the reporting we're doing every day, it sounds like there's a very great need for this. Anything online that addresses that subject and the need for it seems to get a lot of views from people. But I think it's getting the views not because it's sensational, but because there seems to be such a need for it.
There is, but from my own personal outlook on this is I think another trap, though, is curiosity.
Oh, yes, yes.
So a lot of people are curious and they watch all these things, and it might be better for them just to live a good Christian life, to pray. You don't need all these stories. Listen to some to know what it is, but then pray.
Yeah.
Let God use you as an instrument.
That's true, but at the same time, I see that there are more people now than ever in my life who I don't know what to do for them, and we can't reason with them. Evidence means nothing to them, and there's a lot of hatred, or there's a lot of fear, or there's tremendous obstinacy. And in the past, that didn't happen so much. I could convince people of things, and we could just show them the information, we could talk to them, and that would help. But now it doesn't seem to help.
Well, we're
as
religious
much.
by nature, and in the past, even the pagans believed that there was something more powerful than them, good and evil.
Yes.
And so they were open to this.
Yes.
Now, religion is not practice.
Yeah.
So, eventually you don't think about it.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking about God, eventually you're not going to be thinking about him at all.
Well, there's a lot of emphasis now because people are seeing that there's something very wrong in society, and they're very worried, and they know and realize bad things are coming. They use the term spirituality. They see there's good and evil going on, and they instead of going back to the tried and true and proven spiritual practices that we've inherited through generations, they use the term spirituality. And what can you say about all of that?
Well, today is the feast of St. Athanasius.
Yes.
Right, so the tried and the true, and so the Orthodox Church, they consider him, one of the founding fathers of Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
And I just use the Orthodox Church as an example because I know that they have a little collection of writings with the saints, things that the saints have said, and they say those are the best ones to go to because the saints were up here. The saints, they were holy. They were close to God.
Yes.
They knew what to pray for, what to ask for. And we can certainly pray, make up our own prayers, but the tried and the true,
Yes.
we return to that which is stood the test of time and which is tradition, which has been given to us. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So now it's more of a people, and even people in the Catholic Church, if a young priest, I'm older now, so you get thicker skin. I said to a young priest, he said, I had to make an announcement at the parish, and I gave the same homily that I gave in my own parish. And he said, I could never say that here. He's only in his early 30s. And it wasn't anything shocking. And he said, I couldn't say that here. There'd be so many people that would criticize me. And I said, don't worry, you'll get thicker skin as you get older. And he said, I wish I had thicker skin. So this is unusual in the Catholic Church too. It's, in some respects, it's become like Protestants, that we're going to hire and fire you.
Well, the new phenomena on a very large scale that millions are dealing with is abortion. So there have been, at least 6 to 10 million abortions in Canada. So there's all these women who've had abortions, and there's the males who are involved as well, and maybe others. And then there's the people who committed the abortions. They're all implicated in what is a diabolical act. And it has to have some influence. What can you say about abortion and what it does to the soul and spirit of people?
Well, absolutely, because life, you're taking the most vulnerable and innocent life, and abortion is the #1 crime, if we could say that, that's not spoken of. And it's pushed. And it's like in France, that now it's part of the Constitution, I think. And so this is a diabolical, to enshrine something that this is a right, whether it's United States or Canada, we're the same. You're killing the unborn, you're killing the innocent. So it is the most diabolical of all. So no society is going to be blessed if you're doing that. And certainly, spiritually, for people, there's going to be great darkness in them. Until you come before God and say, I'm sorry for this, you have to confess and be repentant. We're not there yet, because I spoke at the very beginning about pride, humility, and my parents, and charity. Oh, we have to give the message, but we have to do it in charity, but we have to give the message. We got to stop killing, period. Because now it's progressed. It's progressed, and this is diabolical. It's progressed from the unborn to the old people.
And
it's at both ends of the spectrum.
Well, and it keeps expanding. What I find is that there's no limit to what the culture of death will do. Like even COVID and the vaccines, at least at minimum 17 million people have been killed by those vaccines that we know of, which are not really vaccines.
It shows you the diabolical deception. I said it's the young and the old, but it's not just the young and the old, it's the in-between too. Because now you can end your life for whatever if you're depressed. Life is sacred. And it is a diabolical deception that we throw the gift back in God's face.
So what is the obligation, the duty of both clergy and lay people to do in response to what is happening here? I know it's very difficult and challenging, but silence is not acceptable. Is that right?
No, we have to speak out. We have to be brave. We have to say this is wrong, right? And especially priests. If you're not going to hear it in the 55 minutes that you're in church on Sunday, who are you going to hear from? And people would say, oh, well, it's all old people at church. They're not having babies anymore. But they got grandchildren. They've got children. We all have to speak about it. Even Catholics are reticent. They won't. It's almost like, and this is what the government has gone towards, your faith is a private affair. It's not to impinge upon the civil arena.
That's right.
And so we don't. And I know Catholics who they'll vote for a pro-abortion party. They voted all their life for that party. And they could do anything, and they're still going to vote for that party. 20 years ago, I was at the cathedral in London, and there was an election. And I said, then, vote the issues, pro-life, life. And I said, don't vote with your wallet. I got a lot of criticism. And the rector, he was upset because I wasn't politically correct.
Well, would he have criticized Jesus Christ if he had said the same thing? Which Christ, he gave the example. He preached on many things that were very politically incorrect. And we're supposed to imitate Christ, the imitation of Christ.
When times are good, and since post-World War II, baby boomers, in the West anyway, economically we've been very comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you have these comforts, you think everything's going to be good and it's going to get better.
You don't want to lose them.
What happens now when things are going to change? And they are going to change, because you don't even have to be religious. Yeah. You just have to be a student of history. And the war historians and that tell us that every 70 years there's a big conflict throughout the world, and economically. So what's going to happen when these people, this is what they hold on to, they've got money, they've got comfort, they've got security. What happens when that's taken away from them? Yeah. So I'm a firm believer something big has to happen before people return to God. God has to bring us to our knees, because right now we don't need God.
Well, that's what a loving father does. I mean, in the way that if that's the only thing that will bring us back to what is best for us, that's what he will allow to happen. He doesn't cause it to happen, but he allows it to happen.
Even the young people, I have hope for some of them. Especially, I have the hope for the ones who were given a foundation. They've got good grandparents, good parents, they've drifted, but they've got a foundation. There's something they can return to. But most people now, it's been a number of generations, they have nothing to return to. Yeah. They have to rediscover it. It is much harder rediscovering it than returning to your roots. Yeah. So that gives me hope, because I know a number of young people, their parents, they say that to me, we gave them the foundation, they're living together, they're not going to church. Yeah. Well, they still have the foundation. Yeah. Yeah. And God doesn't give up on people. You know that.
Well, that's important. I say that very often. About the people that we cover. And if some of them are doing some real good, but they're very wrong about other things, I say, like you said, God doesn't give up on people. If there's an indication that they're wanting to do good, they're willing to do good, let's pray for them and never give up on them and hope that they will do even more good. And then I've seen that happen so often with so many of them. And Dr. Bernard Nathan is one of the greatest examples of many.
Yeah, and you talked about abortion. As Pope John Paul II says, as goes the family, so goes society. Yes. I remember there was Dre, or whatever his name was, he wrote a book on the Benedictine option. And if I recall correctly, he mentioned that there was an Orthodox Jew who contacted him and said, we Orthodox Jews, we were dying out. Practicing Jews were dying out 100 years ago. He said, we had to make a decision. We were going to return to our roots. We were going to live together, worship together, have as many children as God would give us. And he said, now they're growing. And he said, we have to do the same. We have to return to our roots. Yeah. Non radice. Our Lord says that, he plants the seed. Some falls on rocks, some fall on good ground, some falls on the poor soil. And the ones that don't have any roots, they die out. They die out. Yeah. So we have to have roots.
Yeah. You have partially answered this question, but I'll just ask it maybe if you can expand on it. Where do you see things going now?
I'm a joyful pessimist. I preached that a few years ago in a homily, and there was a woman who, we'd become friends, but she came to the chancery office. She didn't like what I said, that I was joyful pessimist. Yeah. And I said, I'm joyful because I'm Christian and I know the end of the story. Yeah. I'm a pessimist because the way things are now, there's no easy solution now to the problems of the world. Yeah. I'm a firm believer it has to be the intervention of God. Yeah. We'll hurt ourselves more. And then there'll be a limit beyond which he'll say, that's it, humanity will not go beyond this. And there'll be some manifestation. God will show us that he's God. Yeah. I'm a firm believer of that. Yeah. So I think things are going to get much worse. I'm a joyful pessimist. Because how do we come back now? Our leaders are the worst leaders we've ever had. Yeah. They don't have faith. Yeah. What guides them? And the people vote for them. Yeah. And so what's guiding the people? A brother against brother. This is Satan's tactic, right? We see it. If you sit on the top of the hill and look and see what's going on in the world, and you can see there's a battle between good and evil. Yeah. The pull towards the world is stronger than the pull towards God, because God gives us free will. He will not take away our free will. You know, I like listening to people, and there's a lot of good people out there now telling the truth, whether they're priests or lay people, and some of them are very articulate, and theologically you can listen, and it's good. And I like all that. I absorb that.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, people react one-on-one.
Yes.
You know, you meet somebody, they do something, they plant a seed, they say a word, they help you, they feed you a meal, you make a relationship, right?
We have been helped, my wife and I have been helped by so many such people. We couldn't have gotten through life as we have without such people just coming into our life and assisting us and allowing us to have 8 children and 29 grandchildren. And we don't attribute that to ourselves at all, you know. And it's been hard. It's been very hard, but joyfully hard, you know. It's
you had asked earlier about where do I see things going and what's the solution. Well, speaking of big families, there are those who are hostile to them, but then there are those who admire them. They see you in a restaurant, they see the love and the babies and the kids with the babies and mom and dad. It's a powerful witness. So it's not, who cares what people say, like this political opinion or judgment.
There's quite I just reading yesterday, a lot of people, because of the economy, have decided, married couples have decided not to have children for now.
So they're not having sex either then?
Well, I doubt that. Although maybe that's happening as well.
You know what I mean? They're using other means.
Yes.
Which the pharmaceutical industry, all these others, why are they taking mostly contraceptives that have adverse health effects? You know, if you're on medication, you're going to check, what does this medication do to me? So see how we're so blind.
It's interesting. When I left my faith, my wife and I both left our faith for about 5 years. We got married, and then we left. Had both left our practice of our faith, and then we came back to it. But we never discussed having children. And then eventually we did have children, thanks to a conversion experience. But we were using contraception for a little bit, for a period of time. And then I read I did research and on the negative side effects of them. And I was at least I knew enough to be very worried for my wife's health and saying, we can't do this anymore. We have to stop this. This is dangerous to your health. But then, of course, we experienced conversion, and then we were able to have children. But even like just common sense wise, you should never use any of these things because of if you love your partner, you would never allow them to use these things.
God gives us nature. He gives us what we need. And this has been the long game, though, because it's been planned, this psychological seduction and getting people to think contrary to what you said is common sense.
So much of it is common sense.
So there has to be a return to that, and the return to that is when we get closer to the things that God gave us. I come from a farm, so I'm a firm believer. You need simple things. You need dirt under your fingernails. You need to grow a garden. You need to read. You need to pray. These are the things that are going to save humanity, because this is human.
So the average everyday person right now, what is some guidance you can give them? I mean, they're dealing with overwhelmingly negative odds, it seems, to be able to live a normal, common sense, natural family life, married life. What are the most important things that they should do, in your view?
Well, none of us live by ourselves. To be alone is, it doesn't work. It's a great burden psychologically, materially. You need to find other people that are like-minded. You need good friends. You know the old expression, my mom used to say this, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. You need good friends. And I know I'm involved with, there's couples, they come together, married couples, it's organized. And they support each other. They say how their prayer lives are going, and they support each other. And they have a meal together. So we need to gravitate towards people that build us up.
And that sometimes takes work to find such people. You've got to make an actual effort to do it, which we have done. You know, that's in our married life. We have done that. Put a lot of work and effort into trying to find people of like mind, and our children to go to schools and to meet friends of like mind as well. It had to be a very conscious effort. If we did not do that, I fear where things would have otherwise been.
And it's sometimes you have to make drastic decisions. Like maybe I have to quit my job and go somewhere else where I'm not going to make as much money, because that's where the wholesome culture is that right? We're very attached. Like I said, my family's has been on the same farm since the land grants were given out. You become very attached, but sometimes it's better to say, I got to go because this isn't good.
In the long run, it's not good.
So friends are important. Marriage is important. Choose wisely. I was talking to my sister today when I was coming to see you, and we were talking about old people we were in school with, and the one family, all of the siblings are divorced.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
That's it.
And so, there's 5 of them. All of them are divorced. What's gone wrong with that? That they didn't have these life-giving unions that they broke up. So you have to choose wisely. So young people have to have that foundation. What do they tick off the box that my spouse must have these qualities? Well, for me, if I was a young man getting married, she must be beautiful. She must be religious, faithful, preferably of my own faith. She must be open to life. She must be a good worker. Those are the ones. Beauty is you fall in love with somebody. It's those other things are the most important.
Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So all those values make for a happy life. Otherwise, and I just know because I was in charge of the marriage tribunal for many years, people can be very high functioning. They can be at top of their game in their business, professionals making money, and their personal life is a mess.
It's very common.
We have to put the emphasis on the personal life. All those other things can disappear. The stock market can crash, digitalization of money, you might not have all the money you think you're going to have. Those things can be taken away from you. But human relationships, God, the relationship between us and Jesus, who's going to take that? Nobody can take that away from us.
Well, it's funny, my wife and I have had as the primary goal for raising our children is that they know, love, and serve God in this life so that they can be with Him in the next. Everything else was secondary to a lot. It doesn't matter whether they did well at school, although that's important, but it's not a primary thing. Doesn't matter they make a lot of money or they have a good career or a business, but they know, love, and serve God in this life so that they can be with Him in the next life. And that's been as parents, that's been our number one goal.
Yeah. If you don't think there's a God and there's not the next life, well, then you can do whatever you want in life because there's no judgment, there's no accountability, and you're just going to cease to exist. But if you know that this is just a short journey, it's a pilgrimage, and you're going to stand before Almighty God, you're going to live this life differently.
I now at my age, I often think of my last hours and days, which I should,
Time is a treasure too, and like you're saying, time. We waste so much time. And now the technology causes us to waste so much time. I waste time. I'll read things, there's so much information. I don't need I can get the gist of it. I don't have to read all of it. But you sit down and you're on your computer, and before long you say, wow, I wasted a lot of time. When I could have been using it to be productive. I could have been praying. I could have been working. As a priest, I could have been doing priestly things.
What should a priest do outside of a parish? Outside of direct parish life?
Well, priests are human, so I think you need to have something that interests you. You know the old saying, what your hobby is probably what you should have did for your living. It would have made the most joy. So you have to have some activities, right? I like to garden, right? I make wine. I give it away. I just bottled 180 bottles of wine. I don't drink 180 bottles of wine. So you have to have something. I know priests that, one priest, his father was a master carpenter. And so he's a very good carpenter. He's an old priest now. But he learned this from his father. Today at the parish, there was some men were putting together a bench for me. And there was a young boy, he's homeschooled. So he's free. And he hung around the old men who were in their 70s. He was learning. He enjoyed himself. He was learning practical things, right?
That's good.
And you can learn. You have to have that. Also, well, your question was what do priests do? Priests can be that to other people. You need to be renewed too. You need friends. Nobody's forgotten faster than an old priest. That's the old saying. Because we don't have our own families. And even the extended family, they start making their own clans. And I just know my own experience and other priests. So hopefully, for me, my siblings that I've been close to have been a blessing, right? I don't know what it would be like for priests if they didn't have the support of, I have a twin brother, so it's easy. Yeah. He's like an extension of myself. I call him and I say, if I need somebody to bare my soul to. But having said that, priests need other priests. Because one priest, he's dead now, gave me an old missal when I was ordained. He said, even though you share this with your brother, you're a twin, he said, now we have something in common that not even you and your brother share, that we share it. So this ontological change, the priesthood, so priests need to befriend priests. There's a lot of lonely priests.
I know that, yeah. It's very difficult for them, especially because there's so few and there's just one in a parish, and it is hard.
And as Bishop DeAngelis said, what do you do? Well, your identity as a priest. Most priests have a day off. Bishop DeAngelis used to say, your day off is not sacrosanct. If you have to do something, do it. Take some other time. First of all, your priesthood, that's your identity. It's like you as a parent. You didn't get a day off from being a parent. And so priests, we really have to step up. We have to become holy. We have to think about becoming holy, because whatever affects society affects priests. All the same things. I don't have a TV. When I arrived to the parish that I'm at now, and I'm going to be leaving it, I canceled the television bundle, and people were happy because I don't have to be like the rest of society, and I shouldn't be.
Just two more questions. What's the highlight of your priesthood that you can recall?
Well, the Eucharist is the highlight, but I've grown into that. Now, after 25 years of priesthood, for priests, the intimacy which we don't have with a spouse or that, God wants us to have it with Him in His church. So that's what most important is, the Eucharist. But then people invite you into their lives. So many people, right? I buried their loved ones. I've married them. Some you lose track of, some you keep in touch with. So I put it on my little card recently, that poem, Bossuet, I think it is, about that the priest is, part of everybody's life, and yet he's part of nobody's life. He's alone, right? People can Google it.
Well, I know priests have played a role in our life at very important times, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was very, very, very special. It's lifelong memory.
The whole thing, what we've been talking about, what does God want for us? Like the early Christian community, it says in Scripture in the New Testament, that they pulled together, they shared what they had, they helped each other. Maybe that time will come again. We become very independent, and even in families, we're broken. Mm-hmm. Broken relationships, broken relationship with God, broken relationship with each other. We have to refine who we are.
What's the most difficult memory of your priesthood? Most difficult time or incident or?
Well, emotionally, I remember there was a little girl that was run over by a truck, and she came to the parish, and I went to school. She was in the classroom. So these things, you enter into the grief of other people. Another young woman, I remember, she had brain cancer, and her family was totally opposed to me going to visit her in the hospital. The mother was hard on me because she wasn't Catholic. I made her Catholic. I received her into the church. They didn't want that. And yet, at the funeral, the mother apologized. She said, I was too hard. Well, she was grieving. I took it in stride. I asked the staff of the hospital, this is conflictive. I said, they're fighting with me. She wants me to come and see her, the sick person. Can I come after hours when everything is closed? They said, no problem. Wonderful. So those are memories. You remember those certain things. And there's just so many, right? Yeah. You forget so many, and then they come back. That's how it is. Yeah. So many people that I should pray for that I forget, and I kind of lump them all together. But then when God prompts your memory, then you pray for them individually.
In those situations, you play a very special role. I had a 2-year-old sister who was run over by a car and killed, and that was a very hard time. Now, unfortunately, I was young at that time, and I don't remember all the things that happened, but it was devastating. But the church played a role in all of that.
And there's always tragedy in life. Nobody gets out of life without crosses. I was 2 years old when my sister was killed getting off the school bus.
Oh my gosh!
So there's nobody that gets out of life without crosses, right?
Oh, that's right.
Crosses mature us, and nowadays people are running away from the crosses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're not running to God; they're running to whatever they think's going to help them. And God bless them, but they're running to the wrong place. Yeah. It's that poem of was it Sir Francis Thompson? He says at the very end of the poem, it's fondest, blindest, weakest. It was me that thou hast seekest. God's the one that will only make us happy.
That's right.
Yes. We can fill it with all sorts of other things. Time is a real treasure, though, and this is a big thing. I see it's a trap now. We waste this is what's Satan's trick? He has many of them, but getting us to waste our time. We don't have much time. We're passing through. It says in Psalm 90, our lifespan is 70 years and 80 for those who are strong. That goes by.
Yeah, and it could happen at any second. Yeah. We're almost done. One more question. Tell one more story about some of those, just one of the many stories about what you're learning in your course. And you told a few during your homily 1 or 2 Sundays ago.
Okay. I may not tell that because they're not my stories. So, okay, but generally speaking, there's a spiritual world all around us, and we tend to take it for granted how real it is. That there's the angels. It's not all evil. There's the good. There's the angels. There's the saints, and to be friends with them. Long before I took this course, I told people, have a relationship with your guardian angel. We have this companion that God gives us that's with us for life, from birth till we are at the point of judgment, either saved or lost. And so we should be friends with this spiritual being that God had given to us. Other things, it makes you more aware to everything that is around you when you learn and you take the course. It's a very good course. And these exorcists are telling their stories about how the door was open for evil. And how many times the ones that are suffering, they have such potential for good, right? So some of the stories, I don't think I'll tell you any particular story. I'd have to think about some of my own personal stories. Oh, I'll tell you one story. There was somebody who came to the parish, and they had all this religious paraphernalia, crosses, St. Michael, St. Benedict, and I said, that's all very interesting. And what's going on in your life? Well, they were having this, there was these apparitions and strange, scary things happening in their house. So I went and blessed the house with another priest, and so we always asked each other, we debrief each other. Was there something here? Yes. It didn't manifest or anything, but it was something there. And their stories highlighted that there was something there. So then she came to see me, and so I knew there was something clinging to her, and we'll pray with you. And then I asked, well, have you ever been in the occult? No, never been in the occult. And then eventually, oh yeah, I went to a psychic and fortune teller and this stuff. And then she would see an entity, and the entity was there all the time. And eventually they came to my little mission parish. I said, well, come, nobody knows you here. Just come after Mass. Come for Mass, come after Mass. And I said to her, we're going to get rid of this problem for you because it's not welcome. And she said, no, I'm okay with it. I made a deal with it. It gets what it wants. I get what I want. And I said, well, where is it? She says, it sits beside me all the time, even in the car. And I never saw her again. Now, she acted out, too, because she had the boyfriend who she was living with. She had strength beyond what a small woman would have. And she manifested it to him. But I had told them, they're living together. I can bless your house and stuff. But if you don't break with sin, the evil isn't going to leave. So that's one of my own stories. The other story, the woman who came and she was having problems, she eventually tells me that she condoned and assisted with the death, the euthanasia of her husband. And then she was given advice to go on, she was grieving, and somebody told her, some friend said, you can go on the internet and you can, there's these websites where grief counseling and stuff, and it's new age. And you can choose, then you choose a spiritual guide.
Oh my goodness.
And so what did she do? She cooperated with the death of her husband, murder. She opened the door to evil.
Yeah.
And she wasn't practicing her faith.
Yeah.
And so she came, saw me a few times, then she disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't know her story. So these are some things.
So you strongly recommend that if possible, all priests should take a course, something like this.
Yeah, I've only done one of 4, and it's been so good so far.
Yeah.
I would recommend, and they recommend, that bishops send priests to take the course.
Yeah.
And you're with other priests, and by and large, if you're taking the course, you're faithful to the teachings of the church, because some of the priests say when a bishop appoint an exorcist in his diocese, some of the older priests in that say, well, do we still believe in that? And the one priest said, well, yeah, you come and when you see people crawling up the wall and doing all these manifestations, you'll change your mind that there is a battle between good and evil.
So there's a lot of benefits.
Yeah. But not to concentrate on that as much. That's a reality, but the big thing is Jesus wants us to know him. He wants us to practice our faith. And obviously I'm Catholic. I want everybody to have the fullness of the faith, to receive the Eucharist, to go to confession. But if that's not your faith, well, practice what you have. And I would hope that if I wasn't a Catholic, I would have become Catholic. But how do I know? I was given it. And I see it as a gift that my parents were faithful. I didn't catch it. I was immersed in it, and I appropriated it and made it part of who I was.
Well, it seems from all the things that we're reporting on LifeSite News these days, the need for such knowledge and wisdom and able to counter these evil forces is greater now than ever in my lifetime. And it's going to be even more needed, clearly, as compared to the trend of where things are going. So,
and people better step up and, by the grace of God, see these things, because I read, and I don't know who said it, but I make it my own. Ordinary Christians, even if you're a believer, you will not survive these times. Mm-hmm. Only extraordinary Christians will survive the times in which we live. Yeah. We really now have to be fully seeking God, because there's so much stuff that has come and that is coming.
Yeah. Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Stephen.
Great to have this conversation with you. God bless you too. And to you, our viewers, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Father Joseph Devereaux. I certainly enjoyed it myself and learned a lot, as I hope you have as well. If you did find it helpful, please give it a like, and that helps it spread through the internet, and tell others about it so that they can enjoy the same conversation. Thank you so much. God bless, and goodbye for now.